And we're going to talk about it as an explosion of architectural intent, where we're taking the grounding that we did in the previous step, where we're grounding our solution on what we already have. Welcome to Digital Transformation Architect, architecting the future of digital transformation. I'm Dr. Darren, and this podcast is for leaders navigating the real-world complexity of modern change. Each week, we cut through the hype to explore how strategy, architecture, technology, and people come together across artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, data, edge, and modern infrastructure. This isn't about chasing tools. It's about designing systems that endure. Let's get started. Okay, in the lecture today, we're going to talk about the last part of the Forge methodology, which is enhance. And we're going to talk about it as an explosion of architectural intent, where we're taking the grounding that we did in the previous step, where we're grounding our solution on what we already have, both process, organizational structure, physical domain, and also the digital domain, and we're going to build on top of it through this explosion of architectural intent with new things or changes to existing things. Only after we have grounded should we be enhancing. I've seen way too many times when organizations drop right into enhance without grounding their solution stack. So the idea here is that we are realizing this enhance phase, and maybe the enhance phase is going to be really small. It could be that I don't have to change much at all, maybe a process, maybe some training for my organization. Maybe I'm not buying any software or hardware at all. The idea here is that I'm going to drive tangible change in the organization using people, process, or technology to do that. And that's the key thing that I want here. So go back and look at that Forge process again. We did the find. We found all the elements that are there. We observed all of the relationships between those elements in the architecture. We reconciled any differences that we had there. We grounded our solution in what we currently have, and then we enhance. And then we iterate, and we do it again. When we need more capability than what we originally planned, we go through the find again. We make adjustments as we need to. We observe the relationships, we reconcile, ground, and then back to enhance. Now, the key thing with enhance is that we do pull on those dimensions that we've talked about: people, process, policy, and technology. Now, policy tends to be more longer lasting, and it can have an impact on enhance, but most of the time it doesn't. Most of the time we're developing policy kind of in conjunction with enhance, but kind of in parallel with enhance, because policy is a way of forcing process to occur and having guardrails and governance around process. So that's kind of how we look at things. So I primarily focus on that people, process, and technology aspects. That's where I want to do most of my focusing, right? And then I pull those things together to create augmented capabilities to what I had before. So it's that I can't just leave technology on its own. I always have to drag in people and process around those technologies. And the same thing with processes. I might be able to get away with changing some process, but I'm always going to have people with there. I may not include any new technology, or I may just train people. So it's an interesting relationship between those three. You can change people without changing the process through some extra training, but most of the time you're going to touch process and technology. So you gotta play games, but you should never touch technology without changing process or people. So kind of keep that in mind when you're looking at your enhanced thing. And the end goal, right, is those augmented capabilities for the solution stack that you have. Your enhance could be small, right? We just did a gear and Forge methodology with a customer, and they thought the technology, they led with technology first. We backed them off of it, and we came up, and turns out it's a process and people thing with a little bit of technology that they already had, but with some small minor adjustments. So what was going to cost millions of dollars is now going to cost $100,000, take 2 or 3 weeks instead of 3 or 4 months, and some training of their people and a couple changes to process, and they'll get the capabilities that they're looking for. So the idea here, we call it the architect's explosion. The architect actually defines that digital transformation. These enterprise architects, they're the one that should be coordinating this. You take that strategic intent, right? Then I go through those architectural decisions. Then I'm going to have that execution plan that's built off of those architectural decisions. And then, that's where the explosion, that's where things really happen. And then I move into that operational stages of that, those operational changes, and then I get those mission outcomes that I'm looking for. So the importance here is that I have worker engagement and feedback through all of these steps to make sure that I am doing the right things, because people have an important role in all of these changes. If you ignore the people and you go off into your own little silo and do this, you're going to fail. Absolutely 100% of the time. Unless you're a company of one, right? And you're the architect and the user, then you can get away with it. But otherwise, you have to involve people in that change for it to be effective. So make sure you do that. Okay, another thing that's really important is once you're getting ready to move from that architectural intent to design and delivery, we always have the governance of the organization, managing those updates that I have, and you also have user feedback that you want to capture. And it's this iterative cycle where I'm going to make changes to my architectural intent with those enhancements, make changes to the design and delivery, look at operational reality, and that feeds back into the loop, right? And what I see a lot of times is this waterfall where architectural intent, they come up with their idea, it drops down into design and delivery, and changes are made there because they find out, the architect didn't know about this one thing over here, so we're just going to change it in design and delivery. And then it gets into operational reality, and we haven't trained the right people, so we need to add training to that. And none of that information gets fed back up into the architects. And what happens is the next time that the architect tries to invoke a new change into the system, they don't know about what happened last time. That turns into a big problem because they can't do the planning and the appropriate architecture work up front. So it's important to have those feedback loops through each one of these stages. And those feedback loops are invaluable for future, and this will help spin things much faster in the future instead of these major handoffs that is the traditional waterfall methodology that we've used in the past. Okay, another really interesting thing that we can look at that will help once I'm operational, and this is an important part of that forge process, and that fits into from enhance getting back to find, and that is when I deploy, I'm gonna have to monitor what's going on. So that enhancement comes in, I'm gonna monitor what is happening once I do that deployment, right? Or that explosion, architectural intent explosion, as I like to call it. I need to make sure that I'm monitoring that what I wanted to have happen actually happen, and it aligns to the mission that I originally established in that strategic intent. If it does align, then I'm in good shape. But most of the time there's things that I need to change. So I need to learn from it. And maybe it does align to my original mission, but maybe something has changed. For example, AI erupts and all of a sudden everything changes. If I have this process in place where I can actually learn from monitoring, even if it hit the mission intent, if I can learn, then I can adapt, adjust my mission alignment, right? So change my mission up in my ODXA layer, change my mission value statements, and then run back through that find, observe, reconcile, ground, enhance, right? So I'm adapting by refining those capabilities and going through that whole stage back to enhance, and then I'm going to monitor what's going on, learn from my monitoring, make those adaptations, and keep that cycle going. So this is an important aspect of that last enhance step of the Forge process. Is I can't just enhance, throw it over the wall, deploy it, and I'm done. I need to monitor it, learn from it, adapt, make alignments, and then refine my capabilities by going back through the Forge process. Okay, the key here is that we're turning architecture into execution. Instead of it just being this static thing that I work on for 18 to 24 months and it sits there, and the only people that look at it are the enterprise architects. Then they make slideware out of it so that executives can read it, and then I push it down to the designers and it goes nowhere. With this plan here, your architecture now becomes your execution plan. It aligns your mission outcomes to your infrastructure, both at the digital domain, the physical domain, the organizational domain, and the process domain. And even in the strategic domain, I need to maybe make adjustments to it based off of that monitoring and the learning and the adaptation that I make to come back in. And the key here is that you keep your enterprise architecture involved in that monitoring and finding out what's really going on in your enterprise, in your organization. If you do those sorts of things, you're going to find success, and you're going to find that you can deploy new capabilities much faster, and you can adapt to change, whether it's disruptive technology, whether it's new policies that come out from an administration or from a competitor with new products that come out. You can make the adjustments that you need to make. Now, we've talked about the desire to have gear and this transformation operating system that we talked about. And we've talked about the Forge process. The next set of lectures, we're going to dig deep down into ODXA, or the Open Digital Transformation Architecture, where we're going to talk about each domain and its impact on when I'm doing analysis in the Forge process, how I do that analysis in each one of the domains. And we're going to talk about how those domains work together to provide solutions to our enterprise so that we can move rapidly and with purpose. And that's the whole reason for these lectures.
You've been listening to Digital Transformation Architect. If today's discussion helped you see your challenges more clearly, the next step is to apply architecture, not just technology. For deeper conversations with leaders and practitioners shaping real change, listen to Embracing Digital Transformation or check out our website at embracingdigital.org. Until next time, architect the future with intent.